On May 29th, 1917, a wondrous little boy came into the world. John F. Kennedy. Born in Brookline, Massachusetts, to an incredibly wealthy family, he was set to change the world.
Now listen here, pregnant wife of mine. I understand you're not feeling well, but I've got to catch the last minutes of this St. Louis Cardinals game. Walton Cruz just hit a whammy out of Braves Park. Apparently, a 402-foot smackaroony which landed in the 25-cent jury box stands in right field.
But Joseph, I'm immensely pregnant and I'm not sure if I'll be able to make it much longer if we don't leave for the hospital.
Jiminy Christmas, Rose, this game is very important. Have the butler take you and our other child.
Joseph, this is the birth of our second child. Little Joe will have a younger brother John soon enough. He's special, I tell ya. And you must be there when he's born. What if you miss it?
Rose, you're being a tad hyperbolic. It's not like Little John, since that's the name we're going with, is going to grow up to be president or something.
Gee, wouldn't that be wild? The first Roman Catholic president of Irish descent. Don't you dare act like that's not possible.
Rose, you know what I mean. Beauregard.
Yes, Master Kennedy.
Could you please whisk away my lovely wife to the hospital? She seems to be going into labor with our child, who could, at this time in history, also be a girl, even though Rose is so adamant that it's a boy. I have a multi-million-dollar banker, bootlegger, shipbuilder, motion picture maker, and stock market winner Kennedy things to adhere to. Send for me when the deed is done.
And that is how the fictional story of how John F. Kennedy, future President of the United States of America, came to be. Welcome to History Out of the Box. This is the 21st episode of History Out of the Box, I think. Maybe 21st. I know we talked about St. Nick a little bit ago. If you haven't seen that, go ahead and check it out. I am Cam.
And I'm Jen.
And we are, as far as I can tell, the only history podcast that connects our listeners with the ghosts of their collective past.
I say the only history podcast out there. The only one.
The only one. There are no other history podcasts ever at all, actually. And we have no evidence to support that claim. But yeah, this is the 21st episode. And before we jump into it, if you want to find more of our content, you can find us on YouTube. If you're watching, obviously, you know that. And you can also find us on Instagram at HotB Podcast.
That's right. And then you can also go right to our link tree right there. So you always have easy access to the YouTube channel and the latest episodes. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about this one. Are you?
Yes, I am.
You obviously know who we're talking about after that beautiful intro.
Well, yeah, I mean, I recorded it in post, but thank you. Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a good one.
I'm prepping for it. So everyone hears it, you know?
Yeah, it's going to be great.
It's great. We are talking today about the famous JFK, John F. Kennedy, who I'm a fan of, but as most people we talk about on this show, there's a lot of good and bad and ugly.
Yeah, I think one thing we need to clarify for our listeners, if you are looking for the conspiracy aspect of John F. Kennedy, this is not the episode. But I do have good news. If you want to hear an episode about that, around maybe a few days, handful of days from when this episode releases, we are actually doing a John F. Kennedy conspiracy X-esque episode discussing the recent revelations. God, I can't talk.
Yes.
Revelations from the CIA and more, which is coming out, I believe, this upcoming Thursday.
And that will be on our sister podcast, the Wolf and Bull.
Yes.
Yeah, so get ready for that. If this intrigues you, consider this just dipping the toe in some of the stuff that could have happened.
Yeah.
In John F. Kennedy's life. But we're just going to keep it to what we know for now. So, are you ready?
Sure.
All right, let's get right into it. On May 29th, 1917, John F. Kennedy was born in Brookline, Massachusetts. Man, I've never been there before.
It's cold.
Yeah, well, I really want to go to like Boston area. I've heard really good things. That's fun. But yeah, I've never been that far north on the East Coast before. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, no. No, it's not sad. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of history there. Last time I was there was when I was like a really young kid and we drove through. So on our way up to Maine, which is also cold. So
I'm so sorry. I got sidetracked literally within the first sentence. All right, let's continue.
It's okay.
Let's continue. Born in Brookline, Massachusetts, 1917. May 29th, John F. Kennedy. Being the second born in what would eventually be 9 children, they did it differently back then, 4 boys, 5 girls, he was born into a very wealthy family. Young John F. Kennedy was born into a Roman Catholic family of Irish descent.
Yeah, that explains the very well done female Irish accent that I did a little bit earlier.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah.
His father was Joseph P. Kennedy, a multimillionaire banker, bootlegger, shipbuilder, motion picture maker, and stock market winner. He was later the head of Securities and Exchange Commission and then was later appointed as the ambassador for the United States to the United Kingdom, which plays a part in JFK's life later on as
It's
well.
a lot about how much impact you can make when you have a lot of money.
Oh, yes. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
Well, there's pros and cons for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely pros and cons. Now, John's mother, Rose Kennedy, was the daughter of John F. Fitzgerald, a previous marriage of Boston, Massachusetts. John was named after his grandfather in this regard. So a family steeped in politics from the get-go, basically. John was a blue-eyed cherub and referred to his family and family friends as Jack.
Well, no, they referred to him. He didn't refer to them.
Right, if I said that wrong. He didn't just call everyone
He called
Jack.
everyone Jack. Hey, Jack. Yeah,
No.
That's how it went, yeah.
John was called Jack by his family and close family friends. At 3 years old, he fell ill with scarlet fever. Very scary. He was also suffering with whooping cough, measles, chickenpox. He was just a pretty sick kid. And this illness deeply scared his father, notably to the point where he went to the hospital every day to be with his son while he was recovering. And it was a scarring thing for his father.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. You want to play into psychology later on?
Maybe.
Being a sibling in this family was no picnic. I would imagine not. You've got 9 children. Don't even consider the fact that they're
Well, they don't have much to worry about. They
a
had
wealthy family.
Yeah, they had a lot of money to feed them.
Right. Well, nannies and housekeepers were needed to keep the children in line. Each child was expected to be physically and intellectually prominent, and the family eventually boasted 3 presidential candidates, including John and his brothers Robert and Ted. You've probably heard the names Robert Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, his brothers.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the family would hold very tough football games, notably at their Hyannis Port Retreat in Cape Cod. This is in Massachusetts. Yes, so we're talking old money. We're talking big money.
Good old football games at their Highness Cape Retreat.
Yes, Cape Cod. They were schooled in the Democratic Party politics and Roman Catholic religious teachings from a very young age. So it only made sense that they were all Democrats later on in life. And all the children have established trust funds when they were young, so they were guaranteed lifelong financial independence. They were likely able to do all the public servitude that they were able to do later on in life through politics because of this. Again, like you said, when you have money, it makes
Sky's the
sense.
limit. Yeah.
This isn't much different today, and
No.
not in every aspect. There are definitely outliers here, but it does seem that a lot of our politicians today seem to have
The
some money.
political parties were a little bit different, but yes.
Right. Now, okay, I looked this name up, and I'm saying it right. Okay, I looked it up. Choate.
Chode?
Not
That's what I said.
Choate.
That's what I said. Chode.
Spelled Choate.
Oh, okay. It's a
Choate.
soft T. Chode.
Choate, which is a boarding school for adolescent boys in Connecticut, was home to John/Jack, as they called him at the time, for quite a bit when he was a kid. There he played basketball, football, tennis, and from a very young age, he was a subscriber to the New York Times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Notable little fun fact.
Yeah,
about
they've been
JFK.
around that long. Wow.
Yes, they have.
That's great. That's wonderful.
And as so many wealthy young men and women still today from the Upper East Coast do, he went to Harvard.
So first he went to Chode and then he went to Harvard.
In 1936, he graduated from Choate, went to Harvard College afterwards, just like his older brother, Joe. Yeah. It just seems to always work out that way, right?
Still stuck on the name of that college.
Choate.
Chode.
Boarding school, not
Sure.
college. But
College,
yes, Harvard
boarding school.
College.
Yeah.
That's in Massachusetts. He played football there. And while he was not notable for his physical capabilities and his athletic ability, he was known for being resilient. Like, he wouldn't give up. When
For
he was
taking a
playing,
beating.
right? Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, it is while playing football at Harvard that he ruptured a disc in his spine, which would lead to lifelong back problems that would affect him for the remainder of his life.
Ow. Not fun.
Yeah, John was attractive. He was agreeable. He was very popular, less ambitious than his older brother Joe. But, you know, you can imagine, right? You've got two attractive, ambitious, likable brothers at Harvard playing football, rich. Like, I can picture this exactly. But Joe had proclaimed he would be president one day. And he was active, but just also average, right?
John was.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was just, you know, compared to his brother Joe, his Joe was the star, and John seemed like he didn't mind taking a
Just
backseat
imagine,
to Joe.
like, Joe walking around being like, yo, hey, how's it going? And some girl's like, hey, Joe, so good to see you. And he's like, do you know I'm going to be president one day?
Yeah. Like, I don't want to beseech Joe's good name, but
like,
it's
I'm
just,
going to be president. Like,
yeah.
There's nothing you could do. Like,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
can't, it will happen. Like, you may be able to vote for me
I'm just
or
trying
not.
to, like,
but
I feel like obviously this was a long time ago and maybe things are different, but I feel like I knew brothers like this growing up, like athletes who just could do no wrong, you know, they just walked with an air of superiority, but they were also like likable. So you I don't like them.
It's all a show,
but I like them.
It's all a show. Yeah, exactly. It's all fabricated.
So that was Harvard, right? Now, in 1938, when his father was appointed as the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain, John served as his secretary. Some nepotism.
Nepotism.
You know what? We love Nepo babies. We have no problem with them.
Nepo babies?
That's what they call them.
Is it like babies now? Is it like another form?
No, Nepo babies. There was an article that
babies.
ran, I don't know if it was in
New York Times.
New York
It's from the
Times.
New York Times.
Yeah, they talk about Nepo babies in tech.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. And
Yeah,
this
I
is
mean,
what they
like,
talked about now.
Nepo babies aren't anything new.
It's news.
It's in every
Nepo
industry
babies.
ever. It's just the way it is. But from this experience as secretary to his father, he drafted his senior thesis at Harvard University, graduating with a Bachelor of Science in 1940 on the nation across the seas' great unpreparedness for military invasion. That's what he wrote his senior thesis on. This thesis would be expanded upon.
Wait. Wait a second. So his dad was the U.S. ambassador to Britain.
Yes.
And he wrote his thesis on how badly Britain
was not prepared for the military invasion during World War II. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Well, World War One. Wait, this is 1940. I'm trying to I'm like getting my
World
dates
War
right.
One. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. My bad. But that World War II is coming up, right
Real
up,
fast.
on a hot plate.
I mean, it's pretty actually happening at that time.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Later, his thesis would be expanded upon and published, titled "Why England Slept" in 1940. It was then that John graduated from Harvard, and his dad sent him this telegram, which I thought was kind of sweet.
2 things I always knew about you. 1, you are smart. 2, you're a swell guy. Love, Dad.
I thought that was a sweet telegram.
That is a sweet telegram, yeah. Back when people sent telegrams.
Yeah, I like how it literally, telegram has no punctuation, right? So it's just all one run-on sentence.
Yeah. 2 things I always knew about you. You were smart and you were a swell guy. Love, Dad.
It's like what I would write to my dad in a card when I was 4.
Yeah.
But in 1941, like I said, on a hot plate, here comes World War II. John joined the U.S. Navy. Great timing. He was sent off to the South Pacific. Yikes. His brother Joe was also, enlisted in. He joined at the same time. He was sent to Europe as a flyer.
Yikes. Mm-hmm. That's more yikes.
Yeah, well, it doesn't end well. I'll just give you a spoiler alert. But near the Solomon Islands, John was put into command of a patrol torpedo boat that crewed 12 men.
Another character that is also head of a crew.
Yeah.
The last one.
Around the same time, if you
Around
remember.
the same time. The last guy we talked about was a certified fool.
Well, that was not the last person
What was
we
his
talked about.
name? The last guy who was the head of the crew. Yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
Well, L.
Good
Ron
old
Hubbard
Ronnie.
had a very different Navy experience
Yeah.
than JFK. JFK, let's just say it was a little better.
They just started were they
better
shooting
depends on
islands
height.
down in the coast of Mexico?
That was L.
Was that
Ron
what it was?
Hubbard. Go listen to that episode if you're curious as to what we're talking about. No, this was a different scenario.
Yeah.
Yes.
John F. Kennedy kind of knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
A little
yes. On August 2nd, 1943, a Japanese destroyer sunk that torpedo boat
maybe not.
by ramming it at full speed.
Yikes.
Yeah. It split Kennedy's boat in half, killing 2 of the crewmen and greatly injuring John, who really hurt his back during this incident when it split the boat. And the remainder of the crew, they all jumped into the water to avoid the flames as the boat sunk beneath the waves near the Solomon Islands. The remaining crew, including a severely burned member who John had apparently pulled to safety, testified to this. They clung to pieces of the wreckage until sunrise. Imagine. They're just in the ocean after getting sunk.
A lot of sharks in the Solomon Islands?
I mean, I'm sure there's sharks in the ocean near there.
Not there. Specifically not there. There are no sharks.
But they all clung to wreckage, and Kennedy then directed them towards a small island several miles away once sunrise came. They kicked away. They made it there. Once arriving, John apparently pulled the burnt crew member to shore, pulling the man's life jacket with his teeth despite his severe back injury, because this was not a good time. He and his crew were marooned behind enemy lines. Bad situation in the South Pacific in 1943. But after 6 days, a native islander actually found them, and help was called. The next day, the crew was picked up and saved by the U.S.
And they all lived.
Well, except the two that died during the actual crash.
But the ones 6 days.
6 days.
Interesting.
They made it. Upon returning to the mainland, the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps Medal of Heroism was given to him for his leadership during this endeavor. The Navy offered to send him back home, but he insisted to be returned to active command. His back, however, was just, for lack of a better word, effed up after this. Again, remember, he hurt it at Harvard playing football, and this was just, even worse. It was paining him already in his teens. It turns out, actually, that John had hidden his Addison disease from the public during his entire life, and this is likely when it was starting to really act up on him. It's a very rare disorder. It's an autoimmune disorder where the outer layer of the adrenal glands is constantly under attack by your immune system, just above the kidneys, which probably played a part into why his back was hurting him so much. It's stated later on in life that he and his future wife were heavily dependent on amphetamine. Did I say that right? Amphetamine, thank you.
Amphetamine.
Amphetamine injections. They were deemed harmless at the time because science evolves, I guess. But yeah.
Just a little bit of amphetamine,
just
some cocaine
injections
in your Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
Just a little bit of meth to keep you awake during World War II or World War I. Yeah.
It's just notable to say that he likely had some chronic pain throughout the rest of his
And some chronic
life.
addiction, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, just a little bit.
In 1945, John was finally discharged from the Navy. His discharge followed the tragedy of his older brother, Joe, being killed in World War II in Europe. Remember, he was a flyer there. And if you know anything about World War II and flyers, it was bad. The family has routinely referred to Joe as being, quote, the first Kennedy to run for office. And once he had passed, that expectation was passed along to the second eldest son, which was John. And that may explain a lot of the rest of his life. Now, it turns out John didn't actually really desire to be president. He, at first at least, he originally planned to pursue a career in journalism or academics.
What sane-minded person would want to be president?
And maybe, JFK is, obviously he has his critics and such, but is usually deemed as a lot of people say he was a pretty good president.
Yeah.
And some may say that his less ambitious side maybe is what made him a good leader. I don't know, just a thought. I wasn't alive yet, so I didn't know what it was like living during that time. But as it turns out, he was quite the politician. Whatever you think about him, he did not disappoint his family. He actually never lost an entire election in his entire political career.
Interesting.
So in 1946, he ran for Congress. His campaign was relentless despite being injured from the war. Remember, he really hurt himself during that accident. Instead of relying on funds from the Democratic organization in Massachusetts, he instead relied on donations from his family, college friends, fellow naval officers that were very, very, they admired him so much for his courage and bravery and all this stuff. Not to mention his family was extremely wealthy. We know lots of politicians that kind of follow this same path, right?
Yeah.
Now, he received almost double the vote of his nearest opponent during that election, and he was 29 years old. Very young. There's a couple of people in Congress that are a little, I think, younger than us. And I always look at them and I'm like, how are you in Congress?
What do you know? How do you know what you're doing?
I know. And then I'm like, well, I guess I'm old now.
No, no, you're not. Look, we're not old until we reach the point of like being 5 years older than the age required to run for president. Then that's when you're old.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's coming up. That's coming up for you.
5 years older?
Oh, wait. Well,
I've got 10 years, pal.
Yeah, right. Well, it'll be here before you know it.
Blink it'll be here.
So he overwhelmed the Republican candidate running against him. Now, John represented the Massachusetts 11th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, and he continued to do so for 3 consecutive terms, from 1947 through 1953. He was a traditional liberal who advocated for better working conditions, higher wages, lower prices, cheaper rents, that sort of thing. Very traditional liberalism. He supported Cold War measures against Russia. He backed the Truman Doctrine, despite being very critical of Truman's actions in Asia, which... do I have to spell that out? I think we're talking about dropping a bomb on Hiroshima in Japan.
Sure.
Yeah. He was staunchly anti-Mao Zedong.
That's interesting and different from politics today.
Actually accused the State Department of colluding in a coalition.
Also very different from certain politics today.
Just seems like we just go in a circle.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a big circle.
I think we forget how young the United States is. But in 1952... John wanted to move on. The House wasn't doing it for him. The House of Representatives wasn't the end. Oh no, we're going to keep climbing that political ladder. So while his seat for House was a safe one, while his seat for the House was a safe one, like he was likely going to win over and over again, he decided to run for Senate against a very popular incumbent.
Henry Cabot Lodge Jr.
That's right. His mother,
Where do these names come from?
the 1900s.
Richard
early
Baritone
1900s.
Bartholomew Patrickson.
It's why all the characters from Twilight are all named around the same.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they all have like.
Cool. Bring that
I can't
right up.
name one. Edward. What was another
Edward,
one? All their names are like
don't know the
that,
other
and it makes me
ones.
laugh because they were all born around the same time, except for what's the old one's name?
I don't know.
Carlisle.
There you go.
He was like supposed to be a vampire from like early Vatican days. I don't know. It's been a long time. I got to brush up on my Twilight lore.
No, do you?
I really do.
You don't. No.
It has a renaissance.
No, you don't. No.
It's happening.
No.
The Twilight, look.
No. It's because Shovelface is Batman, and people have realized that he
Kristen
can
Stewart
actually
is
act.
killing
What
it.
is she doing? Killing what?
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that movie she was in recently?
I don't
where
know.
She was like underwater. That was a good movie.
It was entertaining when they had like
she played
spoilers.
Princess Di. She played-
Spoilers
she
for
played
that
Princess
one.
Diana.
I don't know what that. Yeah, I didn't watch that. Spoilers for the underwater one. It was Cthulhu. But yeah, I spoil. No
dare
shame.
you.
If you haven't watched it, probably not going to. But that's let's move on from Twilight to something more important.
JFK wants to go run for Senate. Okay.
And hopefully Stephanie Meyer just sticks with Twilight as the only thing.
Yes, of course.
Yep.
So he wants to run against this popular incumbent, Lodge Jr., like you said. His mother and sisters held Kennedy teas, which sounds like a fun little time. These were little tea parties that they held across Massachusetts in support
That's
of
cute.
their son and brother, and thousands of volunteers actually aided during this run, including his 27-year-old brother, Robert, who stepped up as his campaign manager. 27 years old, and he's a campaign manager for senator. Is
Very
that
cool.
normal?
I don't know.
27?
I mean, Yellowstone, if it's told me anything, you can be 18 and
That's true.
Run a campaign, apparently.
That's true. Well, he beat out Lodge Jr. by 70,000 votes, and he won the Senate seat. So from 1953 through 1960, John served 2 terms as U.S. Senator for Massachusetts, and he had quite the reputation for quickly and attentively responding to his constituents. He was a huge advocate for the St. Lawrence Seaway, which was he was the first senator from Massachusetts to actually advocate for it. If you don't know what the Seaway is, it is a waterway project from the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes. It was hugely important for industrial efforts in the heartlands of America, Ohio.
So they cared about workers and...
It's a really big deal even still
Interesting.
today.
Yeah.
If you look into the logistics industry and how
very
important
nice.
it was, yeah, it was a big deal. So it wasn't all roses, though, for John during these days. many liberal Democrats were unhappy with what they called a soft hand he took towards the witch hunting campaigns against government workers being accused of communists during the 1950s. Yeah, this is fun. We're going to talk about some of the fun stuff, too. Senator Joseph R. McCarthy of Wisconsin was kind of like the big guy in charge of these, quote, witch hunts.
McCarthy.
And these accusations against government workers being communists. Turns out McCarthy was really good buddies with Kennedy's father, Joseph, which a lot of people drew conclusions.
It's
know.
It's all connected. Absolutely all of it's connected. I'm Alex Jones. It's connected.
Ugh. You're gonna get us in trouble.
Joking. Yeah, no. I'm just saying, like, it is interesting how connected a lot of this stuff is if you look at it.
It's just all about who you know, right? I think that goes for pretty much anything,
who you do
especially in
business
politics.
With, who you accidentally
it's all networking.
Make disappear from the presidential image in the 60s.
Kennedy did publicly disagree with McCarthy. Like, he said he didn't, he didn't agree or advocate for it. But at one point, when he was expected to vote against McCarthy during the condemnation of his conduct in Congress and sort of like singling out like you shouldn't have done this, Kennedy wasn't present conveniently. However, it's important to note that he was in critical condition following back surgery at the time. Some are like, well, that's a little convenient of you not to participate in condemning McCarthy, your dad's BFF.
Yeah, if he's friends with his dad, I mean, obviously there's a conflict of interest there, just a tad.
It just goes to say that even at best, conflict of interest can't escape any politician, it seems.
No.
But during recovery, while strapped on his back in Palm Beach, Florida at his father's house for 6 months, Kennedy apparently wrote Profiles of Courage, which was published in 1956. It was awarded a Pulitzer Prize in 1957. The book followed the account of 8 American leaders who worked against public opinion to serve their greater conscience. Sounds like a great book. But, however, it was later revealed that his assistant, Theodore Sorensen, had done most of the research and writing, regardless of the book being accounted to Kennedy. So
it doesn't matter.
Good, bad, and ugly, guys. I warned you.
The name carries it. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick.
Look, who hasn't had a ghostwriter?
Yeah, like Christian Bale and the guy Christopher Nolan. I mean, I was like, come on, like this.
Yeah,
Shovelface,
It's
Batman.
What's the guy?
Who's the guy who filmed the newest one? Zach.
Not Zack Snyder. That's the DC stuff.
Yeah, no, who did it? The newest Batman.
I don't know.
Anyway, the Shovelface and whoever directed that. Shovelface is
your very tender nickname for Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. I almost called him Edward there for a second.
But yeah, like I said, good, bad, and ugly. So it is sort of attributed that this Pulitzer Prize book he wrote apparently recovering from serious back surgery.
His name carried it.
Wasn't actually written by him entirely, at
least. Would Sorensen have been picked up by the media? Would people have read the book? Probably not.
I don't know. I haven't read this book. I'm very interested because it does sound like an interesting book. But, that's sort of what was uncovered afterwards. But once he actually recovered, John heavily pushed to abolish the Electoral College. He advocated for civil rights legislation.
Yikes.
Yeah. He advocated for civil rights legislation, which was a big deal at the time, considering the time period we're talking about.
Yes.
He pushed for foreign aid to be provided for growing countries in Africa and Asia, and he called for France to actually grant Algeria independence, which was a French-ruled nation at the time.
Very interesting things.
There's a lot. Obviously, we're talking about a president. You could go on forever about everything they ever did during their presidency. I tried to nail some of the big stuff, but...
Well, at this point, he wasn't president.
Right. I'm sorry. I meant like political. I meant like political career.
Yeah.
But yes.
Interesting.
We'll get to the president's stuff later. But in his political career, there's a lot. Right?
Yeah.
So, John, he's 36. He's feeling like he needs a wife. He wants a wifey.
He needs a young lady by his side.
That's right. So
12 years younger than him.
Yeah.
12.
At 36.
Full decade.
He married 24-year-old Jacqueline Lee Bouvier.
She was 6 when he went to war.
Well, She was an adult at this point. AKA Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name later. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but Jacqueline Kennedy. Actually, fun fact, my middle name, well, it was technically after my mother, but my mother is named after Jacqueline Kennedy.
Now that our viewers know your full name,
maybe I'm saying Kennedy. Maybe my middle
maybe
name
it
is
is Kennedy. Maybe it is Kennedy.
On September 12th, 1953,
One
they got
day
married.
after a day we'll never forget.
Many years later.
Yep.
She was a writer for the Washington Times-Herald from a socially prominent family. Of course she was. She was a beautiful addition to the young politician's life, a very young socialite who was greatly admired by basically everybody.
Nothing has changed since medieval times. Nothing at all.
No.
The kings marry the queens.
Yeah.
Princes.
Well, here's the thing. I
married
honestly...
the princesses.
Just seeing pictures of her, stunning woman. I think so. But I don't know. Do you think it's about time for a break?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to complain a little bit more about how everything's the same and we're all just peasants living in a feudal. We are all just peasants living in a feudal system. All of us. The kings and queens are still the same, and the dukes and duchesses.
Yeah,
they're the same. It's just a bunch of gold gilded butterflies flying around in the same cage, and all of us peasant moths grasping at the flame.
I know.
And we're back. I've thought about my life and how I'm just a peasant moth in a wide, wide world of gold gilded butterflies.
You unfortunately were not born into American royalty.
No.
Don't have a trust fund.
No.
Didn't get admitted to Harvard.
No.
Oh, damn it.
No. Just look at me.
All the odds were
literally
stacked against you.
I'm antithetical to what Harvard wants. So even if I write something as wonderful as Sorensen did,
you would be the perfect Harvard candidate if you had money.
I'd be the perfect Harvard candidate for mascot. They'd put me in their mascot, and that's where I would reside. I wouldn't
What's the Harvard mascot?
A gold dollar bill.
I have no idea what it is. As you can see, neither of us attended an Ivy League school. Sorry. No. Okay. So let's talk about the presidency.
Oh, yes.
You probably know JFK as he was a president. We're getting there. But in the late 1950s, John's campaign for the 1960 presidential election was finally underway. He was charismatic, he was well-liked, and in the 1958 re-election to Senate, it was a landslide victory and a test of his popularity, really. It was the margin of victory was 874,608 votes.
Wow.
Yeah, landslide. Indeed. He was very, very well liked. He performed many speeches. He toured around with Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy in tow. He was on the cover of several magazines. He was just really running for it. He and his staff traveled around the country on a 40-passenger Convair aircraft that was purchased by his father. Again, money can get you just about anything, right?
40-passenger Convair aircraft.
And listen, I'm not an anti-money person. I think, whatever.
I'm not anti-money either. I just...
When you mix politics and money, it gets
you know what it
dicey
is?
sometimes.
You know what it is it's the system, and this is unfortunate, but the system right now is set up so that people who have money have a very big head start.
They have a bit of an unfair advantage. My personal opinion.
A tad bit of an unfair advantage. So, I mean, that's really my issue with it.
It just reminds me, like, this 40-passenger Convair aircraft that, like, him and all of his staff were flying around in and doing all their campaigning. It reminds me of, like, Lucius Malfoy buying the entire
You know what it
Slytherin
reminds me of?
Quidditch team.
It reminds me of who's the one actor that liked eating people?
Oh, well, he liked to at
His
least
fantasy
fantasize about it.
was eating
Army
people.
Hammer.
So what it reminds me of is that type of scenario where, like, wait a sec, would you be an actor if you weren't a fabulously wealthy kind of thing,
It's interesting you bring Army Hammer up because he's
in this?
No. He throws up in the start. No, he's a trust fund guy too.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still has it.
Hammer?
Yeah, Arm & Hammer.
Arm
Have you
Hammer?
heard of it?
Yeah, his name is literally Army Hammer.
Talk about a career going sideways.
I
thought he was a great actor. But I don't even want to go into that. That's a whole rabbit hole.
You want to
That's
eat
a whole
people.
rabbit hole we're not going down.
You don't want to say that.
We're going to take a hard left. Okay, so again, like I said, it just reminds me of Lucius
Army Hammer.
buying
Army Hammer.
Brooms for the Slytherin Quidditch team. But anyway, his brother, Bobby Kennedy, was now working on a career as a Justice Department attorney and counselor for the congressional committees, while his brother, Ted Kennedy, was also just graduated. They were heavy campaigners for Kennedy, and they both graduated from Harvard and Virginia Law School as well. We got a bunch of siblings that go to Harvard.
Just a hierarchy, a dynasty of money.
I bet you they were all equally smart and deserving.
They probably were, just like all the people that kind of got into prestigious schools these last few years by lying.
Listen, that whole story with the college admission scandal thing is so triggering for me. I don't even want to talk about it.
It is hilarious.
Anyway.
My child is the head of the Harry Potter Quidditch Club, and it is also the head of the school. They are the superintendent. This is why they should be let into Yale, Harvard, etc.
Okay, let's move on from that. Oh,
sure.
Just triggering. In January of 1960, John officially announced his candidacy for president, and Senators Hubert H. Humphrey and Lyndon B. Johnson, familiar name, they were his main rivals. And later, after being chosen for the Democratic ticket, he selected Johnson as his running mate.
Mistake?
Well,
no one knows.
That's for a different episode. Let's just say that is an interesting relationship that is explored a lot in Conspiracyville. Okay, so that's
I wasn't
not
even
this
going to say
episode.
the C word. I was going to say mistake.
That's not this episode. Just wait for the Wolf and Bull episode to come out next week. Okay, so Kennedy.
His campaign sparked the phrase "the Kennedy style," embodying glamorous and elitist charm that was sparked by the Kennedy identity.
Thank you for getting me back on track. So yes, the Kennedy style. That is the new thing, right? It was trending in America at the time. Jacqueline Kennedy was all beauty, all grace, all fashion. You know, really, I think she was absolutely gorgeous, but to each their own. The Kennedy family was wealthy. They were witty. They were trendy. Everything was perfectly crafted, catered to perfection. Kennedy's campaign slogan was, "Let's get this country moving again."
Bet Marilyn really loved that one.
Oh my gosh. Running against Republican candidate Richard M. Nixon, another name you probably recognize. Yeah. Kennedy won by a margin of 120,000 votes in 70 million votes cast. Now, some immediately accused fraud, which, what is new? Apparently nothing. Nothing. Fraud has been claimed.
It's no such thing
times.
as no one ever wins. It's just everyone loses.
Yes. Many generally say Kennedy's margin accounted for his good looks, his Tony Harvard accent. I can't do it, so I won't even try. I did try.
I'm John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how he kind of, yeah.
That's close. His poise in front of the camera, in public speaking, in front of televised debates is a big deal at the time. So in 1961, he was inaugurated 35th president of the United States. He was the first Roman Catholic elected to the highest office in the land and the youngest at 43 years old. His infamous inauguration speech included this line:
"Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
Beautifully said. Sound just like him.
No, not at all. That is probably the worst accent for Kennedy
right.
I've ever heard.
You gave it a shot. His focus was on the idealism of a new generation of Americans, which sparked a renewed interest in politics, which, again, apparently nothing's new.
Nothing at all.
No.
It is all recycled.
He was a charming lad. He was very charismatic, winning him plenty of praise. He was just very, very popular. In fact, obviously we weren't alive at the time, but just speaking to my grandparents, like I know my grandparents loved him.
Had an altar of him or something like that.
Sure.
Like photos of him on the walls, probably.
I don't know about that.
I just mean generalized. I don't mean them specifically, just generalized.
I just mean like they were big fans.
Like you'd walk into like John F. Kennedy fashion stores.
He was basically a rock star. Okay.
As every president should be.
Right, of course, as they should.
It's right with the title of president.
We seem to have
and public servant is rock star.
We're looking for that other JFK.
Embroidered in beautiful cursive that is illuminated by a wondrous glow of just luminescence of neon.
JFK was basically a rock star. He dealt with the threat of nuclear war with the Soviet Union.
He just smiled at it and went away.
Of course.
Yeah.
The 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, which that was a scary time. And the divided Berlin, you know, that was another scary time. This is all post World War II.
There was a wall.
Yeah. Now, he created the Peace Corps. Big deal. He pushed Congress to approve $22 billion for Project Apollo, race to the moon. He was determined to land a man on the moon before the decade ended, which they did, but unfortunately, spoiler alert.
Some people didn't believe it.
Well, also, as you probably know, Kennedy didn't make it to see it.
No, yeah, he didn't either.
But he was popular, home and abroad. He was popular all over the world. He encouraged good fitness, government worker morale, beautifying Washington, D.C. Sorry, if you can hear that.
Our neighbor is moving their garbage cans at 7 o'clock at night. Yeah, as one does.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. But, you know, that means they're beautifying their home, just like JFK wanted to beautify Washington, D.C. Him and Jacqueline were advocates for the American culture, which sort of was booming at this time. Their two young children, Caroline Bouvier and John F. Kennedy Jr., they were familiar faces throughout the country. They were
Caroline Bouvier.
That was Jacqueline's original, her maiden name.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a name.
It reminds me of what's the Grinch's flame from How the Grinch Stole Christmas? Martha Whovier.
Wow, that was great accent there. That was really good.
That's what that reminds me of.
Yeah, well, that's probably what it's based off of.
Did you like Martha? Oh, you did.
No.
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 Come on. I thought she was the most glamorous woman ever.
She was too glamorous. I mean, like...
I was like, she's so pretty. I
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah.
She loves the Grinch.
I mean, the Grinch had some high standards. She was just a little bit of an airhead, you know?
Yeah, I liked her.
It's okay.
Well, the kids were pretty famous in their own right, too. Their little family sparked allegories to Camelot.
Oh.
Let's hope we don't fly too close to the sun, huh?
Yeah,
We're flying.
No, yeah, they're not close at all.
The Kennedy family was the modern-day version of Camelot. And while Joseph Kennedy was confined to his Cape Cod home due to a stroke, the rest of the family was hard at work in Washington, D.C. Robert Kennedy became Attorney General, a.k.a. the second most powerful man in the country, second to his brother, the president. Mm-hmm. Want to talk about nepotism?
How?
Well, apparently he was popular too.
How is there not a rule against that?
There's no rule.
How is there not a rule?
They were voted in.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jinx. Later, Ted Kennedy was elected to the Massachusetts Senate seat his older brother had previously held as well. They were now what I'm literally calling, they've been called American royalty for a reason.
Very interesting.
Still, Kennedys are very famous today. And, you know.
Yeah.
The Kennedys. Everyone knows about the Kennedy family. They're very famous.
Yeah.
Perfection encapsulated that would only have a tumultuous plummet downhill. As we all know, no family is perfect. And I'm of the opinion that the harder a family tries to work to make it look perfect, the scarier and uglier the skeletons are in the closet. But that's just me. That's my personal opinion.
How dare you say that?
I just think that, look, Kennedys are not able to escape from the reality that all of our families are crazy. Every single one of us.
Yeah, every single one of us.
We just all have crazy families. You know why? Because families are made of people, and people cannot escape.
And people are crazy.
From being crazy. So... let's talk about the marital infidelity. At least
what
a
are you
little
talking
bit.
about?
Oh, unfortunately, not every marriage is staunch and loyalty.
He was loyal to Jacqueline, who was classy, apparently. You know?
Unfortunately, John reportedly, of course, I cannot confirm this with, absolute certainty as I was not there.
Good.
But John reportedly had affairs with many women, including some even say some men, but I don't know that.
What?
Yeah, he just had close friends, and apparently men can't be friends unless you got to speculate that they're gay. That's a whole other.
You can't be. It's true.
Yeah, I don't know about that. The people speculate about everything, right? Anyway, I know that because I saw today someone was posting about JFK and his pictures with a friend messing around. They're like, some speculated that they had a romantic relationship because he would apparently sleep in the same room as this guy every time he traveled, even with his wife.
That is interesting.
I don't know.
That
I don't remember the friend's name. I wish I actually wrote this down because I did not get this. I just saw this today. Again.
So wait.
Maybe I should look this up.
So his wife would be there on the trip with them, according to this speculation, because this is what it is, it's speculation. And he would go and sleep in the room with his friend instead of in the room with his wife.
Well, yes. That is what I read. And I can tell you... Actually, you know what? I'm going to look this up right now because I feel like I can't just drop a bomb like that and let it go.
No, you need to follow it up.
So, okay, we're going to find this right now.
Cuz that's like I mean, I get sleepovers.
I found it.
But
Let me read. This is from Inside History. It's an Instagram account that posts a lot of photos and reels and stuff. It's got 300,000 followers.
That matters.
It could be wrong. I don't know, but
Does
I'm
not
just going
matter.
to share this.
Yeah.
This is a little rumor. Okay. Wholesome pictures. It's like pictures of him and his friend, Lem Billings, like playing around in the snow.
Playing around in the snow.
Lem Billings was apparently gay, like confirmed. I guess, according to this. Is this true? I don't know. I'm telling you right now. I'm not saying any of this is fact. There's never been any proof of homosexual activity between them, but JFK would often, even when married, share a bedroom with Billings. And well, those are some of the photos of them. I'm showing my co-host here right now. You can't see them if you're listening. But I don't know. I don't know. They could just be messing around.
Yeah, like boys.
It looks like they're just laughing and hanging out.
Right, yeah.
But, that's just one of the rumors out there. Unfortunately, I can't confirm anything. This is just rumor. All rumor, guys. Rumor.
Always take photos.
Well, here's the thing.
Like that.
We're going to talk about the affairs with women because those have a lot more
Sure.
smoke behind them.
Yeah.
Right? Including, famously, Marilyn Monroe, which I'm sure you've heard of that before. Marilyn Monroe famously saying "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to JFK, wearing that beautiful dress that Kim Kardashian decided she had to squeeze herself into for the Met Gala.
Oh, I thought you were going to say for her milk commercial, and I was like, that was the dress? Really?
It probably would have worked in the same... I'm like, why did you have to wear that dress? I think apparently she ruined it.
Because she thinks she's Kim. She thinks she's Marilyn Monroe. The ego it's there. But anyway.
Okay. Sorry, Kim.
Why are you apologizing?
I don't really
Kim?
care, to be honest.
She's a billionaire.
But
she doesn't care.
Others include actresses, his wife's secretary, even an alleged East German spy that
makes
he
things interesting.
slept with. It's believed that Kennedy maintained friendly relationships with the press, like personally, in order to keep his sex life out of the press, which would make sense. Now, look, JFK is not the first man to ever step out on a marriage multiple times. So, take that as you will.
Yeah, I don't.
But it's pretty widely believed that he was not very faithful to Jacqueline. Whether he, look, I'm not going to dive into the intricacies of marriage.
Let's get forward to the more important part here: his demise.
Yes, because there is one. On Friday, November 22nd, 1963, John and his wife Jacqueline touched down at the Love Airport in Dallas, Texas. He was there to present a show of unity between Governor John B. Connally. I believe it's Connally. Governor John B. Connally Jr. of Texas and Senator Ralph Yarborough. The two had been in a very public political feud, and Kennedy was expecting that at least this, this meeting would lead to some sort of collaboration between all of them, because he was planning on running in 1964, and this feud was going to be an issue for him. Sorry. Choked on spit. I was talking about feuds. You know how it is. But John, Jacqueline, Governor Connally, and Governor Connolley's wife, they hopped into an open limousine in a motorcade that would go slowly through the city of Dallas.
Whose idea was that?
I don't know. It's odd. But again, popular. He's like a rock star, literally.
Different world.
And they're trying to show unity. I don't know. Now, this is all according to official reports. Trust me, it doesn't take much of an effort to dive into all of the conspiracy theories surrounding the Kennedy assassination. That's for a different podcast, like we said. Wolf and Bull is going to jump into it. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just going to go with what is basically like the standard story here, okay? So don't get mad at me if you believe differently. I'm just going standard.
Or do. We dare you.
Or get mad at whatever you want to say. There's a lot. Let's just put it that way. But at 12:30 p.m., President was shot by 2 rifle bullets, one at the base of his neck and another at the back of his head. One of those bullets actually also wounded the governor. The governor recovered, so he didn't pass away.
Weren't there 3 shots that were fired?
Again, all I gotta say,
just continue.
We'll there's a lot to dig into.
We'll talk about
there.
the Wolf of Bull, but that is apparently there were 3 shots that were fired.
2 bullets made contact. Okay, and one of the bullets also hit the governor who was sitting in front of JFK. Yeah. Now, shortly after arriving at the Parkland Memorial Hospital, because they immediately took him right to the hospital. Again, this is public. This was being it wasn't being televised, but there was like lots of people around and someone filmed it. So you can easily look this up on the internet. Do I recommend you do it? No. I mean, it's graphic. Mm-hmm. They did cut out the part where you really see it bad, but like it's still graphic. He gets shot basically in the head and Jacqueline's sitting next to him and like tries to pick up pieces of him. It's horrible. Yep. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. So JFK was pronounced dead at 2:38 p.m. Vice President Johnson was sworn in as president on Air Force One. There are photographs of that online. With a wink and
a smile. I mean, sorry, with a hand over his heart.
There is photos of him standing next to Jacqueline Kennedy. She's still covered in her husband's blood on Air Force One. He's getting sworn into president. So yes, President Johnson was the following president after JFK. Now, his accused killer, he was never convicted, by the way. Accused killer, 24-year-old Lee Harvey Oswald, was shot and killed 2 days later while in custody by a local nightclub owner named Jack Ruby. Again,
in custody in the basement of a Dallas police center.
So if you're listening to this and
in
going,
the basement,
what's going on? Trust me, again, all you got to do is do just a quick Google search and you will be lost for hours in the stuff that people go talking about with this. It's crazy.
Look, if I was in charge of all of it, I would obviously make sure the guy who did this would not be protected by an army of people.
Well, here's the thing too. Even if all of this happened the way that it's said to have happened, it's still a crazy story. Like, regardless, like the fact that a president was sitting in an open limousine in a motorcade in downtown Dallas in front of hundreds and probably, I don't know if thousands, but like hundreds of people, and he got shot and killed, on a random Friday. Like,
look, the thing that I prescribe to with all these things, because I have questions like everyone else does, the thing I prescribe to is Occam's razor. That's the only thing I prescribe to. And if it is the most likely thing, then that's what I guess it is.
Well, there was an official investigation by the Chief Justice of the United States at the time, Earl Warren, and they stated that Oswald acted alone. There was no other conspiracy.
Which, on that note, is supposedly true with the 13,134 documents that were released on December 16th of 2022, which you can read. I'm doing it right now. So supposedly, he supposedly acted alone, but there also were 3 shots, supposedly. So no one knows. No one knows. We don't know. And we may never know.
Yeah.
Yes. No one.
The Warren Commission, which was the investigation into the assassination, later could not explain all the strange occurrences surrounding the assassination. Again, I'm not going to get into all of them, but trust me, there's a lot. And there's people out there who've dedicated their entire lives and know way more than I do about this. And I suggest you go look into that. And we're going to look into it and let you know on Wolf and Bull. So,
yes.
Many suggest there was at least one other gunman.
Because so far, maybe 3 shots. Maybe.
Yeah, that's just what people say. But the official story is Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Now, as recently as 2013, in a Gallup poll, 61% of Americans believe that there is a conspiracy involved in Kennedy's assassination in some respect, and only 30% say that Oswald carried out the murder on his own. Those are big numbers for a conspiracy theory. Mm-hmm. Again,
well, not a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Which, by the way, we also easily enough with the last episode, Wolf and Bull, we actually talk about conspiracy theories. They are different than conspiracies. But yeah, it's just one of those things, just one of those things.
Yeah, I only recently actually looked up some of the stuff going on there because I just didn't know anything about it, and I was kind of surprised. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, for another time. But sadly, in our episode today, this is where JFK had passed away. He was buried at the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia, which, have you been there before? No?
Negative.
I have been, and I've been to his grave. His brother is buried there as well, I believe. Amazing, sad, but an incredibly beautiful place, the Arlington National Cemetery, and I highly recommend visiting and paying your respects. There's the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers there, Kennedy's grave, and of course the thousands and thousands of graves from people who have been buried there who've served in the military. But let's talk about JFK's legacy a little bit, because regardless of this horrific assassination that took his life, the mystique surrounding JFK has thrived on. Even today. Both of his brothers, Ted and Bobby, also ran for president after this. And tragically, Robert Kennedy was assassinated as well while on the campaign trail in 1968. Which is horribly
What are the
sad.
odds?
Yeah. 2 brothers assassinated, 3 run for president.
I mean, again, what are the odds that all those people are in politics too?
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's one of those things where it's just kind of like, there's so much that went really well. And then there's also so much that went horrendously wrong.
It's
and it's kind of
it's eventful.
A little bit
it's
on the
there's
nose.
so much going on. What a life.
Can you
imagine living a life like that?
Too eventful.
It's one of those things where people it's like the pendulum swinging so hard in both directions.
Well, you also have to look at the historical time period and what was happening at that time. So it's there was a little too many events that seemed to kind of happen all at once. And it's just, I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I want to let viewers and listeners know I'm not a major conspiracy person. I when it comes to Kennedy, I don't know. I really don't know. It's
the first time I read into a conspiracy theory and I was like, wait, this may have some legs.
Well, here's the problem that I have with it is it's just like anything. A group that is charged with handling it and telling you the truth, and which also by a lot of people is suspected to have been a part of it, is also the only people with the keys to the castle. Keys to the castle, keys to the castle. Like that, they're the only people, and you have to believe only them. And like anything at all, when somebody in power tells me that they're the only answer to a question, I don't believe them.
Yeah. Well, sadly, Jacqueline Kennedy, she survived this ordeal, and she was sitting right next to him when it happened, which is traumatic, obviously. She took her children to Georgetown and later to New York City. She received much praise for her poise and grace and dignity throughout all of this, which was, as you can imagine, a media circus. I can only imagine what it would have been like today. This is the 60s. But her poise has become a legend all on its own. She later remarried a wealthy Greek shipping magnate. Sure. His name was Aristotle Onassis, which is why I said that's why her name was changed later on. And she became a high-profile book editor. She did pass away, though, in 1994. John Kennedy's passing was a very sad event for Americans, but his leadership, accomplishments, and glowing personality stood out to many, regardless of this personal life, stuff, the entrenchment of being involved with someone like Marilyn Monroe while being married, etc. And it's why he's today recognized as a flawed but fairly well-respected and well-received president of the United States. He came in 3rd place behind Martin Luther King Jr. and Mother Teresa as the most widely admired people of the 20th century in a Gallup poll, which I would say is a huge, could you say accomplishment?
That's big for a legacy.
That's huge.
I have a personal problem with people in power being deified.
Yeah.
So, whereas I find John F. Kennedy to probably be one of the better presidents that has ever became leader of the country, I, much like with anything, am critical and would love to look into his actual decisions. Because it's pretty interesting that one who is so staunchly against Mao Zedong is also against, during what would be widely considered probably the most, maybe outside of the last few years, most infiltrated time in all of America with the USSR. It's interesting that wasn't super pro making sure that political people were not communists.
He was complicated.
It's just interesting. Well, yeah, obviously, I think everybody's complicated. I mean, that's the purpose of the show.
Consider his ambitions didn't necessarily lie with political office until after his brother died. So you have to wonder how much of that, I mean, maybe he did want it later on, but how much was it attributed to pleasing his parents and his family?
How much of it was this is for the Kennedy name type thing?
Well, think about it. His two younger brothers followed in his footsteps and tried to run too. Mm-hmm. So there's this,
which is kind of
dynamic,
which pseudo mafioso-esque.
It's just nepotism is what it is. But is it really nepotism when, here's the thing, it's nepotism through money, but they still were elected. Mm-hmm. Elected by a landslide for JFK. Mm-hmm. So the people chose him. But it just goes to show you public image means everything in politics.
It also goes to show you that public image is totally fabricated. If you're friends with all the media entities that keep your unsavory, especially at that time, personal life on the DL, I mean, it's
a complicated man. Yeah. I like talking about people like this because
I don't think he was bad.
No, and you were right to mention the deifying thing because when it's so easy to deify historical figures.
It's so out of control.
We talked about this with George Washington.
Yeah,
George Washington ended up. His legacy is huge, and he was hugely important and did many great things. But he was also a massive failure at the same time.
Well, people also did.
People are faceted.
People also did it with Sacagawea too. I mean, like it's or literally anybody. I mean, they take these individuals who are seemingly larger than life. If you have a really good PR campaign, you are larger than life to most people, and they put them in this position of like never being able to do anything wrong. I mean, like let's be realistic about this. He's third behind Martin Luther King and Mother Teresa. Mm-hmm. Why isn't Gandhi third? How about Jesus Christ?
Oh, well, there's 20th century,
okay,
but
okay, I get it. Maybe that's probably the case. I didn't register that point, so we'll redact that. But still, like you get my point. It's like I feel like there may have been other people,
it's all perspective. But here's the thing: when you die like that, and you have that, you're that type of a leader, and then you die, you become a martyr.
It's like Nirvana. It's they invented an entire genre, and from my personal perspective, had Kurt Cobain stayed alive, they probably would not have been as big as they are today. So it's the same type of thing. Obviously they're different. It's not the same, but it is a similar situation.
It's also, we were talking about this the other day with JFK's assassination. You could probably equate it, at least in some form of way, to the way we maybe feel about 9/11. We were kids when that happened. And it was a defining moment in our lives. And sometimes when we talk to people who are 10, 15, 20 years younger than us, they look at us with a blank stare because here's the thing, I don't even blame them for it because they don't have any conceptualization of that kind of huge moment in history that was completely turning your world upside down.
How different everything was prior to that.
And that's how I maybe feel in respect to the JFK assassination.
Sure.
The builders and maybe, even boomers. I mean, I know my dad was born the month before this happened, so he doesn't remember it. But like our grandparents, especially, like this was a huge moment in time that defined probably a lot of their young adult lives. Seeing or hearing the president get shot like that and just turning. I mean, God forbid. I don't care if you like the president or not. I wouldn't want this to happen today.
Well, you know what I think is interesting about this specifically, and we'll talk about this on the Wolf and Bull, but what's interesting about this specific thing, is that everyone kind of, as of right now, is like, they look at people who look at this as a conspiracy, and they're confused. Like, wow, why would people question this? Abraham Lincoln was a conspiracy. Like there was a conspiracy to murder Abraham Lincoln.
A conspiracy and a conspiracy theory. Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing: is a conspiracy theory just precedes the revelation of a conspiracy. Mm-hmm. So, depending on how accurate it is, not to suggest there's a lot of them out there that are wild. But with that being said, like I just look at it like, guys, it is quite possible it is quite possible that what people are saying about it is potentially true. Now, whether that does anything, I doubt that it will, is beside the point. There has to be this objective position that I believe that needs to come back in society where people can sit and process things without outwardly just throwing them away wholeheartedly. And it's the same thing about talking about these individuals. Like, there was this major push a few years ago to just get rid of all people that had any impact whatsoever in the early days of this country. And it's like, I get what you're getting at. That's not the best way to do it, because what you're doing is you're throwing out any semblance of identity that anyone will have and any understanding. And when you do that, you deify people further. You create them into bigger and larger martyrs. What you need to do is learn about them. Listen to people who know a lot about them, read about them, spend time to understand these individuals, and then maybe you'll understand their decisions. And I'm not saying you'll agree with the decisions, but you'll understand the decisions.
Okay, well said.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that we made JFK a little more bite-sized for you. If you are interested in learning more about not just the JFK assassination, but the man himself, highly recommend getting a couple books, reading a couple articles. There is a whole website, I believe it's the JFK Foundation. They actually have tons of information about the man, the myth, the legend, John F. Kennedy. And yeah.
And if you're interested in the conspiratorial aspect, the FBI has all the documents on their website, fbi.gov.
That's right. You can read
You literally can read all of them.
One of them now.
Only 5% have not been released. There's 90%.
The JFKlibrary.org. That's what I was thinking of.
But yeah, if you want to read about that, go ahead and check that out. But again, I think there's one thing I missed. I didn't ask viewers to subscribe. Purpose of the show is to connect you with the ghosts of our collective past. What does that mean? That means that we actually talk about people from a historical perspective about the life that they lived. Now, granted, we have our biases, we have our opinions, so please don't, hate on us too much for that. We are human. And we're doing this in our spare time. But with that being said, this is a show to get to understand historical people, to understand them as who they were, not what society has turned them into. And we think that that is a beneficial thing. So if you feel generous, go ahead and subscribe. There are new episodes. We should be getting back into our normal progress of Tuesday for audio and then Wednesday for video. So yeah, just keep an eye out. And if you want to look for more of our content, you can find us at Hot B Podcast on Instagram as well. But again, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.